Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever it is you are in the world, and welcome to another edition of Vampire the Masquerade, the YouTube experience, Zooster City. After going out and about last evening, Evelyn Yasmir, the metamorphosist Zamisi, remembered that there was a certain someone that owed her a certain level of loyalty, at least in her mind. She remembered that after she involved herself in a fair amount of work, that Owen never once came by to assist her. And this has made her more than a little cross. But it also provides an interesting opportunity to study life in all of its forms, and thus has simply placed in the call to Mr. Owen Woods with a simple text. I require your services. I would be delighted if you would join me in my haven in a few hours. We start the scene with Owen arriving at the haven's outer perimeter.
On the outside of the haven, Owen is straightening his tie. He looks around and he had totally forgotten about her. He kind of assumed she was too busy, and this text that he just got, well, that wasn't too much fun. So he forwarded this text to Arthur as well, in case he goes missing, and he wants to look for him. Not that he thinks Arthur would care that much, but who knows? So he knocks, rings the doorbell, whatever is customary for this haven.
There is just simply the heavy iron doors, sort of the shutter door. Takes a moment, but it finally is pulled open, and I don't remember, has Owen seen Evelyn when she hasn't flesh-crafted herself out of her normal?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
I do believe so.
She'll open the door, and she's wearing a little more than sort of like a silk robe over the various forms, but she lifts up the gate and simply looks at Owen with a slight smirk, a very placid expression that he might be used to. He might remember.
Yasmir.
Owen, I had almost thought that you'd forgotten about me.
I do apologize, my lady. I have been kept busy these last few nights.
I see. Well, I have to admit that I have been rather busy myself. The previous agenda I'd had has not panned out well.
Well, it's too bad to hear. A new study's on the horizon, I suppose.
Perhaps there are many things that I'm interested in, but enough to sort of settle down on one particular thing is, well, let's just say it's not something that comes easily for me. I like to take all things in and then decide what I'm going to do. But please, come in. Let's catch up. It's been far too long, and I'd like to bring you up to speed on some of the things that I found out. They're rather interesting.
And Evelyn will notice that Owen is a tad nervous as he steps into the into your probably filled with all the ideas of what happens and stays in Simitsi's Haven.
Well, the upper level is still simply the average carport. Nothing, nothing too fancy. It's been cleaned a little bit more since the last time he was there. It's like the various tools have been arranged, and the floors have been swept, and the walls have been cleaned. The windows have been repaired, and large or metal shutters have been placed upon them. Seems to be that it's been made into something more than just an abandoned husk. But she'll lead Owen down into the sort of sanctuary that Evelyn had made for herself, and it's actually pristinely clean, whereas once there were bodies on the walls. It's been scrubbed clean. The smell is actually rather pleasant. Sort of the scent of scented burning oils can be smelled within the area. They seem to have sort of a fruity bouquet about them.
You can notice that Owen is almost disappointed, or he looks a little bit disappointed when he arrives downstairs and doesn't see the usual bloodshed, flesh and blood everywhere.
Interesting response. I'd had almost expected you to be at ease down here, but you almost seem sad.
It's always a shame when Adzamitsi doesn't have the time or perhaps the energy to do their studies.
Well, as things are ever changing, you go from one activity to the other, one endeavor into the other. This particular one ran its course, and now it leaves me wanting, in a manner of speaking.
Interesting. Looking for subjects?
It is hard to find subjects that I have a particular interest in working. I might be a poor metamorphosist in that respect, but I am rather selective about what I bring to the table. You have to understand that as an artist is discriminating about their paints and their brushes, I too am rather discriminating about the flesh that I decide to work with. But the city has a rather large population, and it's only a matter of time before someone strikes my fancy, I suppose.
You can actually see Owen is contemplating your words. Aye. The brush is about as important as the painting itself.
Indeed. Even the canvas, the quality of the canvas that you have to work with can make all the world of difference in what it is that you're doing. I do believe that I have perhaps spent a bit too much time with Toreador in my existence.
Some of them, they give food for thought, while others are a bit too caught up in their own imagination at times.
True, but I would very much love to, at some point, have a Toreador, an adopted child almost, and teach it the skill of the art of flesh crafting and see what they can come up with, if no other reason than for my own amusement.
I might know someone who would jump at this.
Do tell.
There is a Toreador lady who's part of the Kane's Bastards.
They are numerous, aren't they? I met one last night.
Which one, if you don't mind me asking?
The gentleman that owns a bar or a club.
Mm,
A Mr. Remy White, I believe.
yeah. Mm. It's the same. Remy is the child there of Jacob Barnes, as they call
Oh,
them.
interesting to know. Oh, it's certainly glad that I did not have any terse words with him last night then. I'd hate for Jacob to think any less of me. It seems that he was rather impressed with me the first time we met, at least in my, well, how I decide to comport myself.
Of course. But I've noticed that Miss Fate, she has a eye for art. And I'm quite sure she would jump at the possibility of having a new art form to play with.
It would be interesting to see, I suppose. You'll have to tell me more about this Miss Vet at some other time.
Of course.
Hmm. And I assume that you've met with your dear friend Alice. I did have a chance.
Uh,
Apparently, she wasn't aware of certain aspects of my particular bloodline, or I should say, our particular bloodline.
he looks genuinely surprised.
She wasn't aware of what it is that makes us tick, and she required a bit of tutelage, and I suppose that she didn't come back to me with angry words of, well, my advice not panning out. I assume that things are going well for her.
I assume, yes. It's been a while since me and Alice spoke. My new Domitor keeps me busy.
Hmm. Yes, yes. What sort of errands does your new Domter have you running these days?
Information, messages, pretty much anything I'm good at. Do you know who he is?
Hmm, not yet. Like I said, I've been rather busy. Suppose I'll have to speak to Louis or Arthur in the next few weeks to become abreast on what it is that is going on in the Canite society around here. I'm sure that it's been all a flutter. But when you have a predilection such as mine, you get lost in the mix.
I do believe I can get a message to both of them with fair ease, especially His Excellency up the
He's an interesting one, Mr. Thane, isn't he?
in what sense, Lady Yasmir?
Well, him and I had an interesting night out when I first arrived.
Hmm.
We made our way out and found ourselves in one of the rougher neighborhoods where a few rapscallions had gathered, and he challenged me, and of course I accepted. He wanted me to go and allow this group of street toughs to get rather brutal with me and take it for a bit before making my way up and showing them a thing or two. It was quite wondrous to watch just how these street urchins fell so easily.
Hmm. Is that the case with most of them? Talk a big game, in the end, they fall like flies.
Yes, yes, they do. Such is mortal, the mortal lot in life, I suppose. You, your kind, you have a certain leg up on the competition.
Some, yes. We're still
However,
nowhere
on
near your.
Oh, that's true. But I have a question to that effect. Do you plan to remain as you are always, or do you plan to take the next step into our society at some point?
Eventually, I will hopefully be worthy. I do believe at this point in time, the current Domitor is entertaining the notion.
Well, I suppose that ghouls eventually have to ask themselves that question, don't they?
After so many years, it's necessary.
I suppose at some point you would more than likely enjoy the prospect of not having to constantly ask for blood or have it given to you, but simply go out and take it.
Correct.
But at the same time, I also imagine that in doing so, you would lose the sun, and I don't know how well that sits with your kind. Would you miss it?
Yes. But it's a sacrifice you're willing to make.
You know, it's the funny thing about sacrifices. We've all had to make them. I had to give up, for many, many years, a human visage, human interaction, simply to understand my sire when he was my domitor.
Hmm.
And I have to honestly say, after being given a chance to exist in a purely canite environment, it was eye-opening.
Yes, correct.
Oh, and how long do you think you would last, in all honesty, living in a purely canine society, if you were to keep the same hours as us, so to speak?
It's difficult to say, to be honest.
Do you think it would be eye-opening for you?
Even more than it already has. Yes.
Alright. I am going to buff a few points, or buff, what am I going to buff? What should I buff? I'm going to buff some strength. I want you to know, Bram, I do love you. At the word eye-opening, I am going to go for a attack, so I do believe I need to roll my manipulation and subterfuge to give you a chance to tell if I'm getting ready to do what I'm about to do.
Yeah, sure.
So, let's see. Manipulation is 3, subterfuge is 2. So that's 5 dice, and you can roll, I'm guessing, your perception empathy on that one.
Yeah. I don't think so.
Oh. That is a failure.
And it's a success on my end. So
You only need the one, so you know that she's about ready to do something.
Yeah.
So I guess we roll for initiative.
Yes, because he's going to start running at this point. Okay.
Alright. Let's see. 7, that's 11 for me.
14 here.
Ah, you sly little bastard.
Alright. Take it away.
Alright. So what will her action will actually be to literally go for the eye. She's literally trying to pluck out one of those eyes.
Owen's action is he's gonna start bolting. And what he's gonna say, because we can just take this turn. He's gonna say, as he sort of looks, and before he runs, I don't think His Excellency of Thathian messing with his property, as he's. I'm just gonna make a dex athletics to start bolting. Because he doesn't know if this is going to work. So, better safe than sorry. That is 2 successes there to start bolting it.
Alright. I will attempt to... I guess I gotta make a willpower roll to make that attempt. To try and catch you. So, let's see, what is my willpower? It's high enough. And got the success I needed. So, gonna try and do a dex brawl to try and, take you down.
Okay, so you're gonna run after me.
Yeah, basically a tackle.
Wait, can you do that actually? Because you usually can only refer to a defensive action.
I think what your role would be something along the lines of your successes take away from mine.
Well, no, it's more like the willpower roll is usually for...
The willpower roll is to change my action.
Yeah, but usually it's only for defensive actions, I believe.
Oh, okay, well, if it was superfluous, it was superfluous. But gonna go for the tackle.
No, it's more like I don't think you can do an attack. If you say you're going to do X, and then you can do willpower instead to defend yourselves. I think that's how it works.
I don't have the book near me, so I'm just going to have to go with that then. So I guess I'll try and swing at you, and if I make more successes than you...
Yes.
Alright. But we'll be sporting about this, and I'll go for a sweep, which I do believe is a bit more difficult. Just double check.
Oh, you're going to sweep at the eye?
Well, you've moved out of her range, so, I mean, there's really not a whole lot I can do with that. I mean, you kind of change the dynamic. Let me see here. Melee weapons. Let's see.
Aborting an action. You can abandon your character's declared action in favor of defensive action as long as your character hasn't acted in the turn. Well, you can still go for the eye, but it's just going to be
harder.
Well, yeah, 2 successes will take away, so you're going to have to run up and still try and poke out his head, I guess.
Seems to be what we're going for. Just see movement. Bite, claw, clinch, strike, sweep. Difficulty +1. Okay. So it's difficulty 7, and I have... Basically, I have to make more than successes than you. But if I do pull it off, knock you down.
Potentially.
Potentially. Alright, so... Let's see. Strength is buffed. And that is 4, so 7. I'm going to spend a willpower point.
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3, 4. 4 successes. So
Okay.
2 successes. Or no, I'm sorry, 5 successes, so 3 I got on you. That's not
Mm,
so just need to take a look at about tackle, or I should say sweep. Okay, so you need to roll your Dex and Athletics difficulty 8 or suffer a knockdown.
okay.
And if you're knocked down, the victim falls down after suffering a knockdown. The system makes a Dex Athletics roll. You may get back on your feet immediately, but her initiative is reduced by 2 in the next turn. On a
Right.
fail roll, you have to spend the whole action climbing to your feet. And on a botch, you land particularly hard and take a level of bashing, an automatic level of bashing damage.
I will be spending a willpower though on this because I don't want to fall on my ass while I'm running away from a Zenitsu. So that's 2 successes there.
Alright, so you will manage to stay on your feet, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Or rather, you get knocked down. Let's see, I gotta roll my strength, which is just 3. But you won't, fumble around. 1 bashing.
Alright. He doesn't soak. That's too bad, so he is hurt. Alright. Next turn.
Mm-hmm. She is going to go for a. She's going to go for an attack this time. She's going to try and chase you down. Let's see. I think what she's going to do is she's going to split her action. One will be on creating some bone knuckles, like bone blades, on her hand, and the other one she'll actually be going for a sort of like a hamstring maneuver.
Okay.
To basically cut your leg out on you.
Alright. He's still going to be running, so I guess this Dex Athletics is going to be a dodge as he's keeping running.
Yeah.
Alright. I guess you can make your attack roll.
Alright.
Or do the first roll and then the attack.
Yeah. I'm looking at it right now. Because unfortunately, I am not a walking roleplay database. Even though I'd like to fancy myself as such. Disciplines, vicissitude, bonecraft. Respect to town.
Oh, I will be spending a willpower on this.
Yeah, I kind of figured. Gonna blood buff another into. I'm gonna blood buff into dexterity. It'll be difficulty 7, so it will be 3 plus 4, so that's 7, so that's 3 dice. To get the success I need, so my do have the sort of blades on them. And then going for the Dex plus Brawl. Or melee, no, it's Brawl. So it's only 4 dice. So you have a really good shot at getting away from me on this one.
I kind of hope.
I'm looking for the combat maneuver real quick about hamstring. So check something real quick.
Probably if you're going to go for a limb that is +1 difficulty.
Probably +2. I guess double check here. Page 299. kick, grapple. 299. Hamstring. Lower legs, tears up tendons, cripples two-legged enemies. Hampers in games. In terms of a successful hamstring attack, knocks a bipedal target over and makes it hard for them to stand again. Dexterity, less athletics, difficulty S, much less move, 1/4 normal movement until it's healed. Alright. So this I will be spending a willpower point on. And hoping for the best. What's the difficulty on this? Be a difficulty 8. So here's looking at you, kid. 2 successes.
Alrighty. So, yeah. 3 for Owen, as he is gaining, or not gaining, he's getting further away from you at this point. He is getting close to, well, since we weren't that far, I guess at this point he's almost out the door.
Yeah, he's probably up the steps at this point, I would say, easily.
And he seems to be dialing the phone.
Right. In this turn, Evelyn sort of, as she swings the bone spurs at his leg, he gets away, and she's just sort of smirking at him at this point, And as she buffs another point into Dex, I think that puts her at her max. She just kind of cants her head to one side as she begins to pursue. Oh, and you owed me a certain debt. You said that you would come to assist me, and never once did you even make the attempt to try. You owe me some time, my dear boy. Make this easier on yourself and come back.
As I was going to say, that may be the case, but I don't owe you my life.
Who said anything about your life, my dear boy? I had no intention of killing you.
Or turning me.
Who said I was going to turn
That's
you?
Thane's to do, not you.
And she's just gonna do a straight up Dex and athletics to catch up to him.
Alright, that's his opposed, I guess.
Yeah.
And yeah, he will be spending willpower because his instincts are kicking in at this point. 3 successes.
Alright. I'm gonna burn one more willpower, and then I think that's it for me for tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So here we go.
I had 2 successes. Well, let's see. No, it was 1 success, so he's not that far.
Yeah.
So 1 plus 4. Ooh. I think he's staying out of your reach at this point.
Yeah. Let's see. It's 1, 2, 3 with the willpower point. So close, but not quite there.
Okay. At the door at this point, he is running towards his car.
Alright.
Yeah. He doesn't want to die. Because that's what
Evan's
he thinks
gonna
is
just
happen.
simply reiterate. Boy, I have no intention of embracing you or killing you. But the more you run away, the more perturbed I am going to get.
As Owen's looking at his phone, hoping that someone will pick up. He doesn't pick up. There's no need for this. Fuck, I'll get you someone else to experiment on, if that's what you want.
And gonna buff another point into strength. I'm gonna attempt to close that gap on him, keep him from getting into his car.
Alright.
In fact, I think what she's going to do is, rather than completely catch up to him, she's actually going to try and beat him to his car and stand between him and the car.
Alright. That's cool.
I hate this. I'm going to spend another point of willpower. Damn it.
Yeah, no, I've spent all that I want to spend in one scene. So I'm just going to.
This is like my second scene of the month of September. I'm doing pretty good for myself, I think. This is probably where I'd be by now, anyways. Alright, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 successes.
Nope. Alright, so, yeah, you beat him to a car, and he backs away from the car and starts looking to both sides.
She's standing sort of, she's standing with her two fists raised above her head in a very measured stance.
As he sort of puts his hands up. But I do apologize for not coming. I expected you to call on my aid. That's what I'm used to.
Have you ever worked with an artist before? She says as she sort of squares off with him.
As he holds his hands up in sort of surrendering motion. No, I was at Nosferatu's school for most of my life. I'm sorry, I never really deal with artists. I do.
Mr. Owen.
With things happening in the city, it's just hectic.
I get the feeling that you're ready to maybe come to your senses.
I just don't want to die.
I can tell you quite honestly, I have no interest in destroying. And if you want, you can go ahead and making a
perception empathy. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. 2 successes. So.
She's very, very sincere on that. She has no intention of you. You've only dealt with her a few times, so.
Yeah, so he's not entirely sure.
Yeah, in those few times, I don't think she's ever come across as somebody who's particularly, what's the word I'm looking for?
Vicious? Vindictive?
Not outwards. Not outwardly so. She seems like everything she does is measured. And if she seems to be coming across as honest, she's definitely honest. And she also has the sanctity merit, so when she seems like she's being sincere, she's definitely coming across as
yeah, so... And that also means you have no wish to turn to me. As this looks at you.
If that point comes, it will be something that I'll have an actual discussion with you about. But as you are right now, you're not quite worthy of joining my lineage, if you understand. And that's not a knock against you, but I barely know you.
As Owen gets out his phone, looks, knows that no one answered, and hangs up. Fine, I'll take my punishment then.
You even... I wasn't sure if you were going to understand what was going to come next, but you do surprise me, Mr. Woods.
As he undoes his tie, I've been in this game for a while. Lately, you asked me, like...
Well, the fact that you're even willing to accept a certain number of licks, let's say. It's your character. And I don't think your punishment has to be quite as severe as I had thought up.
Which one would you prefer to do?
She simply just walks up to
I
Owen. She's dropped her hands at this point, dropped her stance, and she simply just holds out a hand towards him.
And he... Is it like in the way of like, grab my hand and let me lead you to your eternal doom?
A little bit less sinister, but yeah.
Sort of gingerly.
Mm-hmm.
He sort of gingerly puts the sanctity well kicking at this point, because that does make him believe that it's going to be all right.
I'll admit what's going to happen is going to be slightly uncomfortable.
Might I suggest perhaps something from Marquita Sad or The Witch's Hammer?
Perhaps.
Enlightening.
I'm still formulating my vision in my head, but for now, just remember, anything I do to you I can undo or fix fairly easily.
Aye.
And
Also,
if Owen follows, she'll actually be leading him back to where they started.
Yeah. He will follow. Also, as he has unbuttoned his shirt, she'll see the various tattoos underneath. Probably by the time that you're down, and he's just stripping down because he is assuming, and it's easier to do stuff. Torture of any kind without clothing. She'll see that pretty much his entire body is covered in tattoos.
She'll simply nod and look him over. She actually, she'll beckon him to actually strip down bare.
Right. Which he does.
And she'll begin to circle him, her sort of fingers running along the tops of his shoulder blades and his shoulders, just inspecting him, seeing what she has to work with, sort of nodding and taking a mental stock of it.
I think I do have to make a particular roll, actually. I do apologize. Okay. This is for a derangement he has, and I forgot the roll earlier, but I see that I made the roll, so that's cool. Okay. Continue. He's keeping composed.
She just simply washes him, looks him over. Yes, this will do nicely. You're going to be in my... I'm not going to say custody, because you're not really a prisoner. But you're going to be in my company for the next few nights.
I will have to let His Excellency Apathia know.
I will personally take care of it for you.
Of course.
And she simply goes to the far end of this sort of rotunda-like room and goes into the back room and pulls out what looks to be something of almost like a marble pedestal. And she'll set it down in the center of the rotunda.
And he just walks over towards it, expecting himself to be laid across or something.
And it's more like a pedestal, like literally you have to stand up on it. There's not a whole lot of room on it.
Alright. Would you like me to stand on it, my lady?
Yes, directly in the center, if you would please.
And he will do as he is told.
And she'll sort of place her hands on his hips and sort of get him to push his legs together. And she will roll her dexterity and medicine, difficulty of 9 to actually fuse the flesh together.
Mm-hmm.
No, okay, just rolling it.
I know. At this point, we can also just hand wave it. Oh, you
Oh,
watch.
I
All right.
botched it. That's gonna hurt.
Him or you?
You.
All right.
Let's see. What does it say with the botching?
Wait. But it can't be good.
Doesn't say anything about the botching, but I think there's a certain level of damage you've probably just taken. Ugh.
Uh, let's say 2 lethal before soak.
Yep. Probably.
As yeah, as your, it's gonna be a sort of, instead of like a precise job, what you probably had in mind, it's gonna be raggedy and jagged.
I kind of imagine like her sort of touching, like driving her fingers into his flesh to start to sort of coax the
This is
muscle
screws
fibers
up.
away from each other. But as she does so, it sort of botches and literally strands of muscle begin to just fall away like spaghetti from his flesh as the skin is sort of ripped open. And he probably loses the ability to stand.
Yeah, he just drops to his knees. Uh, Tears running down his face, but he is going to try and stand, like through sheer will.
You want to give it a, I guess, a Dex Athletics difficulty 10 with say, at least 2 successes needed.
All right, yeah, let's see. Probably. Oh, it's 1 success. As he will get up to his knees. You can see that he's trying. He's trying his best to do as he's told, but then the muscles have torn, and he collapses again.
Oh, that was not quite what I had envisioned. But any proper flesh crafter must expect a certain risk in what they do.
I'll be able to stand in a bit, I'm quite sure. Apologies.
But let's see. See if I can't replicate something a bit to a point with a certain level beyond what my sire did to me. And she'll begin to sort of run her fingers along his arms. And she's actually going to strip away the bits of skin, sort of roll it down almost like you would like a sock. That'll probably be a little bit less difficult, let's say difficulty 7.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I got that one.
Still,
Oh yeah.
Probably still going to be painful as hell.
Probably not as painful as it could have been, though.
Let's give him a little bit of a courage check to see if he can keep from screaming.
Very good, Mr. Wood. Very good. Tell me, do you know what a warghoul is?
I've heard about them. Maybe one same one.
What if I told you that I could turn you into something that's much more than you are at the moment, but without taking away your ability to live.
Then I might as well be dead.
Oh. Please, elaborate.
What I know about them is they're mindless weapons.
Yes, this is true. In most aspects, you are right. That in doing this, we usually choose those with much less in the way of intelligence. Dropping them in a way of being much more than much more than in the way of a bestial creature. When going into the full-fledged creating a war, what if you were a ghoul that simply had certain advantages? If I were to make a work of art out of you, something that could actually function in normal society, would you ever forget about your benefactor ever again?
I guess it depends on what you're going to do.
Well, it all depends. I do believe that turning you into a warghoul would be something of a... It would be something to truly be an undertaking. But I might be able to make you a bit stronger, might be able to pad your flesh with a bit more resistance, effectively giving you some built-in armor, perhaps even a few built-in weapons. How would that sound to you, Mr. Woods?
Do you want my honest opinion?
Please do.
I would not like it one bit.
Well, very well then. And she'll just simply sort of crouch over him and begin to work on him in a sort of horrific manner, simply as a temporary work of art. I think we're going to make one more roll on this, and then call it a night for the two. She's going to, I guess, she's going to fleshcraft him like one of his French girls, in a manner of speaking, since he can't really stand anymore.
Alright. Yeah, I think we can handle that particular bit. You're just going to put him in a position.
Yeah. And gonna roll willpower on this one, for fuck's sakes. Done so much of it, but there's only 10 days before the month, so might as well. So that takes me down to willpower 6. And for the alterations that we're going to do, I'm going to say difficulty 10. And 1 success. So it's not the greatest work of art, but manages to pull it off to some facsimile of what she wants. What she'll do is she'll actually sort of, again, marry Owen's legs together and create them into almost this one prolific stand upon which she can sort of prop him up, in a manner of speaking. And she'll actually kind of distend the color and the pigmentation of his skin and sort of make him a semi-frozen image of himself, sort of fusing bone together with the joints so he can't actually move for the time being. And almost making him into something of a sculpture, leaving only the ability to really see, breathe, and eat intact. And she'll look down at him and smirk. I'm going to ask that you stay this way for the remainder of the evening, and tomorrow evening I'll undo what I've done. After that, you can assist me with my research. How does that sound?
Generous.
Yes, quite. And with that, she'll sort of bring out like a sort of Japanese-style bedroll, the best way I can describe it, and roll it out and set him on it so he's actually not laying on the concrete, so he's actually got some modicum of comfort. This is simply for being brave enough. This is not being compassionate, rather finding what you're willing to put up with, what you're willing to take when you realize what's ahead of you. It's earned you a certain bit of respect in my mind. Now, Mr. Owen Woods, I want you to keep your senses sharp. I want you to take in all that you're experiencing while in this form, while you're frozen in this beautiful, beautiful state. And while you're doing that, take mental stock, because when I fix you tomorrow, I'm going to want to understand exactly what is going on from your point of view. Leave no detail out of your mind. Remember everything, every sensation, every cramp, every pain, every twitch. We'll go over this at length. And when the time is right, I do believe we will experiment more extensively on someone who's a bit more deserving of a much darker fate. Would you be interested in, would you enjoy partaking in an activity such as that?
If my lady wishes that.
I simply wish to know whether or not you'll enjoy it or not. Being part of a work of art.
I can honestly say I do not know. I've never been an artist. I've never created art.
Well, then perhaps I can teach you what it's like to sculpt the flesh. In time. I think over the course of the next few weeks I will teach you the basics of human anatomy, if you do not already understand them, of course. And we'll see what creations you can create all on your own without any abilities of the blood. But for now, rest, she says as she walks into the next room and brings out a chair and a notebook, and she just sits in front of Owen with unblinking eyes and holds out a pen and a notebook and begins to observe. And I believe there we will call it a scene.